Alara stared out the porthole of her small spacecraft, her eyes narrowing as the blue and green planet came into view. Earth. A world she had come to loathe, a planet filled with selfish, war-hungry humans who didn't care about the galaxy beyond their atmosphere. Born on the distant planet of Iseris, Alara had grown up hearing stories of Earth's history, stories of conquest, pollution, and indifference. As a member of the Zarelian race, an advanced species known for their empathy and peaceful ways, Alara couldn't understand how a species like humans could survive, let alone thrive. Her mission was simple: recon and gather data. The Zarelian Council had tasked her with observing Earth's latest technological developments and determining if the humans were a threat to the wider galaxy. But Alara had an ulterior motive. She wanted to find proof of Earth's malevolence, to convince her people that the planet needed to be isolated, or worse, eradicated. As she descended through the atmosphere, her ship cloaked in invisibility, Alara's heart was heavy with contempt. Her memories drifted to the past, when her brother, also a Zarelian scout, had gone missing near Earth. The Council had dismissed his disappearance as an accident, but Alara knew better. She blamed the humans, and now she would make sure they paid. Her ship touched down in a secluded area within a dense forest. Alara stepped out, her skin shimmering with the iridescent hues of her people, hidden by the advanced technology of her suit. As she ventured deeper into the forest, she activated her scanner, searching for anything that might prove Earth's danger. But something else caught her attention: an emergency signal, faint but persistent, coming from a nearby human settlement. Alara's lip curled in disgust. "Probably another human mistake," she muttered. But something compelled her to investigate. Perhaps it was the thought of finding more evidence against them. As she neared the signal's source, her scanners picked up a wrecked ship, an Earth military vessel, half buried in the ground, its pilot still inside, unconscious but alive. Alara hesitated, torn between her hatred and the empathy that was a core part of her being. In the end, she decided to leave the human to his fate. The planet was full of them. One less wouldn't matter. But as she turned to leave, a weak groan reached her ears. Alara paused, her heart conflicted. The sound was so full of pain and desperation that it triggered something deep within her. Against her better judgment, she approached the wreck, her fingers hovering over the controls of her suit's medical interface. She could help. She had the technology, the knowledge, but why should she save a human, especially when she hated them so much? The pilot stirred again, his face contorted in pain. Alara bit her lip, her internal struggle growing. Finally, she sighed, pressing a button on her wrist. A beam of light scanned the pilot, assessing his injuries. He was severely hurt, broken ribs, internal bleeding, a concussion, but it was nothing her advanced tech couldn't handle. "Why am I doing this?" Alara whispered to herself as she began the healing process, her hands moving with precision and skill. She knew the answer, though she didn't want to admit it. Despite everything, despite her hatred, she couldn't let someone suffer if she could help them. It was the Zarelian way. As the human's breathing steadied and his wounds closed, Alara felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, confusion, and a twinge of guilt. She had saved a human, something she never thought she'd do, but why did it matter? It wasn't as if he would remember her. She had erased his short-term memory as a precaution. He'd wake up, think he had survived by sheer luck, and she would be gone. Or so she thought. Captain Jack Ryder awoke with a start, his body aching but surprisingly intact. He blinked, trying to make sense of his surroundings. The last thing he remembered was his ship going down after a skirmish with rogue pirates in Earth's orbit. He should have been dead, or at least critically injured. But instead he felt fine, more than fine, actually. He climbed out of the wreckage, confusion knitting his brows. His ship was trashed, but he was alive, and that didn't make sense. He wasn't one to question good fortune, but something didn't add up. As he looked around, he noticed strange marks on the ground near the wreck, almost like someone or something had been there. Jack shook his head, trying to clear the fog. "Maybe I hit my head harder than I thought," he muttered, searching for his emergency beacon. It was already activated, broadcasting his location to any nearby rescue teams. But until they arrived, he was stuck here, alone in the middle of a forest with nothing but the sound of rustling leaves and his own thoughts. Hours passed. and Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone had saved him. He had seen combat, knew the signs of an explosion, and had been in enough crashes to know what should have happened. But this time, it felt different. His injuries had been real, but now they were gone. As night fell, Jack made a small camp, his mind racing. He didn't believe in miracles, but whatever had happened was close enough. As he sat by the fire, he thought about the Zarelian scouts his unit had encountered in the past. They were elusive, almost mythical, known for their advanced technology and mysterious ways. Some said they could heal with a touch, but those were just stories, right? Jack's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of rustling nearby. He tensed, grabbing his sidearm, but before he could react, a figure stepped into the firelight. It was a woman, or at least she appeared to be, with strange, shimmering skin that seemed to shift colors in the light. Her eyes were a deep, vibrant blue, and her expression was unreadable. "Who are you?" Jack asked, his voice steady despite his surprise. The woman tilted her head, her gaze piercing. "I am Alara," she said simply. Her voice was calm, almost soothing, but there was an edge to it, something Jack couldn't quite place. "Alara," he repeated, lowering his weapon slightly. "You're not human, are you?" She shook her head. "No, I'm not." Jack took a deep breath, trying to process everything. "Did you save me?" Alara hesitated, her eyes narrowing slightly. "I ensured you wouldn't die, yes, but that doesn't mean we're allies." Jack raised an eyebrow. "I didn't ask for an ally, just answers. Why help me?" Alara seemed to struggle with the question. "It's not in my nature to let someone suffer if I can help," she finally said, her voice softer. "Even if that someone is a human." Jack nodded slowly. "Well, I appreciate it, even if you didn't want to do it." Alara's gaze flicked away, her emotions a jumble. She had saved him, but now that she was face to face with the very creature she despised, she wasn't sure how to feel. Her people had always preached peace and understanding, but how could she reconcile that with her hatred for humanity? "I need to go," Alara said abruptly, turning away. "You'll be fine. Rescue will come soon." "Wait," Jack called after her. "Why did you come back?" Alara paused, her back to him. "I wanted to make sure you were all right," she admitted, though it pained her to say it. Jack smiled faintly. "Well, thank you. Maybe humans aren't all bad?" Alara didn't answer, disappearing into the darkness without another word. Jack watched her go, a strange sense of loss settling over him. He didn't know what had just happened, but he knew one thing. He owed his life to an alien girl who hated his kind, and that was something he couldn't easily forget. Alara retreated to her ship, her mind a storm of conflicting emotions. She had done her duty, saved a life, and yet she felt no satisfaction, only a deep, unsettling confusion. Jack Ryder was just a human, a member of the species she had sworn to despise, yet there was something about him that made her question everything she believed. She sat in the pilot's seat, staring blankly at the controls. Her mission on Earth was nearing its end. The data she had collected would be more than enough to convince the Zarelian Council that humanity was a danger to the galaxy. And yet, she hesitated. For the first time in her life, Alara doubted her purpose. Why had she gone back to check on him? Why did she care whether he lived or died? The questions gnawed at her, making her feel vulnerable in a way she hadn't before. As a Zarelian, her empathy was a strength, something that connected her to all living beings. But now it felt like a curse, forcing her to care for someone she had been taught to despise. Alara replayed her interactions with Jack in her mind. He had been grateful, kind even, despite his situation. There was no malice in him, no sign of the monstrous traits she had been told humans possessed. Could it be that she had been wrong about Earth all along? Shaking her head, Alara tried to dismiss the thought. One human didn't represent the entire species. The atrocities humans had committed were real, documented throughout the galaxy. But Jack, he was different. He had shown her a side of humanity she hadn't expected, vulnerability, humility, and even a touch of humor. Her internal struggle grew as she prepared her report for the council. Every word she typed felt like a betrayal, not just to her people, but to herself. She could still condemn Earth, still argue for its isolation. But now, the conviction was gone. Alara found herself questioning the very foundation of her beliefs, and it terrified her. Meanwhile, Jack had returned to his base, his mind filled with thoughts of the mysterious alien who had saved him. He had told his superiors about the crash, omitting the part about Alara, knowing they would likely hunt her down if they knew. He wasn't sure why he protected her, only that it felt right. As the days passed, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to see Alara again. He didn't know why, but there was something unfinished between them, something he needed to understand. He made excuses to return to the crash site, hoping for a sign, but there was nothing. One night, as he stood alone in the forest, he heard a faint hum in the distance. It was a sound he had heard before, the sound of her ship. His heart raced as he followed the noise, praying he wasn't too late. When he finally found her, Alara was standing by her ship, her expression unreadable. "I knew you'd come back," Jack said, breathless from the run. Alara looked at him, her eyes full of the same conflict she felt inside. "Why did you come?" Jack shrugged, struggling to find the right words. "I don't know, I guess I just wanted to understand." "Understand what?" she asked, her voice tinged with sadness. "Why you saved me, why you hate us so much," Jack replied, stepping closer. "And why, despite all of that, you're here." Alara sighed, turning her gaze to the sky. "I was raised to believe humans were dangerous, that you were a threat to everything my people hold dear. But after meeting you, I'm not so sure anymore." Jack nodded. "We're not perfect, but we're not all bad either." "I know," Alara whispered, "but convincing my people of that will be nearly impossible." Jack looked at her, his eyes full of understanding. "You don't have to do it alone. Let me help." Alara's heart skipped a beat. Could she really trust him, a human, to help bridge the gap between their worlds? It seemed impossible. But then again, everything about their encounter had defied the odds. She knew she couldn't return to her people with a report filled with lies. But could she really take the risk of trusting him? Before she could answer, a message from her ship interrupted her thoughts. The council was calling her back, demanding a status report. Alara felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She had to choose, follow her mission or follow her heart. "I have to go," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack reached out, gently taking her hand. "You don't have to go alone." Alara looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity and hope reflected there. For the first time since arriving on Earth, she felt a glimmer of something she hadn't expected. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for something more, a future where their two species could coexist. "I'll think about it," she said softly, pulling away. "But for now, I have to do this on my own." Jack nodded, understanding the gravity of her decision. "I'll be here if you need me." With a final, lingering look, Alara turned and boarded her ship. As the doors closed behind her, she knew her life had changed forever. The hatred she had once felt for Earth was gone, replaced by a new, unfamiliar feeling, one that she wasn't ready to name just yet. Alara returned to Iceris, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. The journey home felt longer than ever before, and when she finally arrived, she was greeted with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. The council had been awaiting her report, eager to hear what she had discovered about the human threat. But when Alara stood before them, the words that came out were not what they expected. She told them the truth, about the potential dangers humanity posed, but also about the good she had seen, the kindness she had witnessed in a single human being. She spoke of Jack Ryder, the pilot she had saved, and the lessons she had learned from him. The council was divided. Some members argued that Earth should still be considered a threat, while others were intrigued by Alara's account, seeing the potential for peaceful coexistence. The debate raged on for days, but Alara stood firm, refusing to back down. In the end, the council made a decision that surprised everyone, including Alara. They chose to open a dialogue with humanity, to send emissaries to Earth and see if the peace Alara spoke of could truly be achieved. It was a risk, but one they were willing to take. Alara was appointed as the first Xyrelian ambassador to Earth. The responsibility was daunting, but Alara felt a strange sense of purpose. She had spent her life hating humans, but now she was tasked with building a bridge between their worlds. It was an irony not lost on her, but it was also a chance to make a difference. When she returned to Earth, Jack was waiting for her. The relief in his eyes was palpable, and for the first time, Alara allowed herself to smile. "Looks like we've got a lot of work ahead of us," Jack said, his tone light but serious. Alara nodded. "Yes, but I think we can do it. Together." As they stood side by side, looking out over the vast landscape of Earth, Alara realized that her journey had only just begun. The hatred she once felt had transformed into something else: hope, curiosity, and perhaps even a budding friendship. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges and obstacles, but for the first time, Alara felt ready to face them. She had saved a human, and in doing so, she had saved herself. Now, she would work to save both their worlds, one step at a time. And maybe, just maybe, she would find that Earth wasn't so bad after all.